Hey everyone, this is Ryan. In today's video, we'll take a look at adding filters to our gallery using list boxes and also input controls so that you can easily filter down your galleries based on the selections the user makes. The other great thing that you will see here is a nice sleek design, so you don't have to use drop downs on top or anything or a panel on the left. It's very easy where you can select your filter option at the top, enter your filter criteria and click apply, and then you'll know if any filter criteria has been applied because the filter icons will then appear full, like so. So the first thing we want to do is add filter icons beside the columns that we want to filter on. So you'll see I added 3 here. So I just dragged and dropped 3 filter icons. Okay, and the size I put is about 20 by 20 pixels. And for the icon, I use the filtered flat icon. So what we want to do after you add those icons is start to build the dialog that pops up when you select any of these icons. So we'll start with type, and what we will do is we'll go to the add on the left nav and we'll search for rectangle, and we'll drag and drop it over the type area. Okay, and we'll give that some room here. And from here, we'll change around the color to white. And we will have the border and we'll put it as a gray in about 2 pixels. So that's the backdrop for our filter pop-up. And then from here, we will add a list box. And we'll just put it, layer it just above the rectangle here, and let's make the rectangle a little bit longer because we're going to add a couple buttons just below and maybe a little bit wider, just give us some more real estate. So if I go back to list box, I can try to increase the size and get it more positioned properly here. Okay, so what we want to do now is add a couple buttons. So what we will do is we'll drag and drop a button, put it just below to the left here, and we will shrink down the size. So we'll say it's about 35 or 30 height, and we will put it to about, let's say about 100, and we will shrink the font size to about 12, and we'll say that it's apply. Okay. And what we could do here is just to keep with the aesthetics of the screen here, we could change around the color. So we'll say that it's white, and the font color we will actually change around so that it is gray. Or sorry, it's white, and the font color we will change to gray. So background is white, font color gray here, and you'll see how it nicely outlines here down below. And then from here, what we want to do is if I click and I press my Alt key here and I hover, you'll see that it turns gray or green or blue. So what we want to do is if we go to the drop down and go to hover fill, we could change this around to a gray. So what I do is I just use 128, 128, 128. And then from here, if we press play, you'll see how it's easy to distinguish when the hover happens. So now what we can do is we can actually copy this and paste it and put it beside the other one and just position them around a bit better so that they're easy to work with and they look pretty much lined up. So in this case, the button on the right is going to be the clear button. That will clear any filters that we have here. Okay, so we have our 4 components. And what we're going to do is actually group them together. And I'm going to call it group type filter. And then from here, since now they're all grouped, what I could do is change the items for the list box to the drop-down list for the type, or the option set for the type. So it's going to be relationship type, I believe, and that will be our list. Okay. So the next step, since we have everything sort of in line aesthetically, what we want to do is now pop up this filter pop-up whenever we select the filter icon and close it when we click apply or clear. So to do that, what we're going to do is on the onSelect property is we will click, or we will enter update context, and we'll say filter type, and we're going to say that it's the type field, and we'll close that off. Okay, and so what we're going to do is for the group, we're going to say it's only visible when filter type equals type. Okay, so now if I press play, I click the filter icon, it pops up at that point. What I want to do here is, what's bugging me is how the font size is too big, so we'll just lower that to a 10 so we can see more records in here. And then what we will do is on our apply button and our cancel button, we're actually going to change these around so that actually makes the filter disappear. So if I go to the onSelect property, I'm going to update the context here, and we're going to say for filter type, we're just going to clear it out. Okay, and for our clear button on the right, we will do the same thing. However, we're going to add another parameter here that will actually clear the filter or the list box whenever they click this button. So what we will do is actually reset, and I believe this is list box 1, and we'll close that off. Okay, so we'll reset and clear out any options selected, and then we'll hide the filter pop-up for type. So now you'll see if I select any of these options and I click clear and I go back, you'll see how they're no longer selected. So now we have our pop-up in place. You see how it's working how we want it to. Now how do we get it tied to the filter or to the gallery in the background here? So what we could do is if we go into our gallery, we see that we already have some sorting already enabled for this. So what I will do is just break this out, and we're going to add a filter to our account list. And what we're going to do is saying if the list box is blank, you still bring back any amount of records that are available in the list. So we're going to say list box 1.selected, because we want to return at least a true value. If we happen to return a false, there'll be no results returned. Okay, so that's why we want to say if it's blank, send back a true value. Or, and this is where we're going to say where this record dot relationship type is in any of the list box selected items. So from here we're going to say list box 1, and then we'll say selected items. So the cool thing about this is we're actually able to not just select one, but we can select multiple list box items here. So if I go back and press play, you can see that if I select the filter icon, we have the pop-up, and here we'll select customer and we'll click apply. You'll see how we only see customers available. Now if I go back to here, I can also select vendor and click apply. So we see customer and vendors. Now if I want to clear, I can clear, and it will clear out any options that were selected, and then it will now display me all my options available to us. Now one thing I want to mention is let's say if we select prospect and we click apply, we don't know that this filter has been applied. So in this case, what we can do is go back to our icon here above and say, okay, let's go and change this icon to say if there is a selected item in the list box, let's show the filled filter icon appear. So what we're going to do is we're going to put an if condition here. So if we're going to say not is blank, and we're going to say list box 1 dot selected, and we're going to show icon filtered filled. So filtered flat filled icon, and we're going to close that off. So if I go back, you see how it's populated, and here if I happen to select, let's say customer, it's still populated. And if I clear, you can see how it's cleared. So it's easy to identify whether or not this filter has been applied to your gallery or not. So the next step that we want to do, since we do have this one filter operational, let's add one to the name, but instead of a list box, we will use a text field and we'll actually search on the name field instead. So I always like to cut corners here. So instead of, recreating this from scratch, since we have our color schemes in place, let's just copy and paste this, bring it over. We'll size it pretty much similar to where it was before. And instead of the list box, what we're going to do is we will delete this and we're going to add a text input instead. And usually with any sort of search, you will want to actually increase the size. So I'm actually going to ungroup this, and we'll group it again in a minute. But we'll increase the size of the rectangle a bit, decrease the size of the text input, and remove the default input for the text criteria here. So for the width, I'm just going to shrink it down probably to about 290. Let's go a bit further. Let's go 280. And then from here, we can put our apply and clear buttons just further up. And then we will shrink our rectangle button or rectangle backdrop just below. So let's try to put the size up here, put these up. Okay, that looks a lot better. And we'll drag that up. And for the text input, what I like to do here is change around the border just to make it more consistent with the rest of the screen. So we'll put it to a 1 and we'll put a gray background or a border for it. Okay, you notice how I didn't do that for the list box. You can always do that to the list box as well for the border color, just to make it all, look aesthetically similar. And we'll decrease that to 1. Okay, so now that we have the text box, our components all ready to go, essentially what we have to do is change around our filter icon here. So right now, if we go to our on select, we will just copy this over, and instead of filter type by type, we'll use name. So we'll be filtering by the name property or column instead. So we'll update context and we'll filter type will be by name. And then from here, oh, sorry, I put that in the icon property. Let's go to the on select. And it will be by name. And then from here, what we can do is update our properties. So we have on the apply, we will clear out the filter type. So we still want that behavior. And with the clear, instead of resetting the list box, we will reset the text input. Okay, so that gets us exactly what we want. And then from here, what we can do is we can just group everything together. And we will group by name filter. And then from here, with the visible property, I can say where filter type equals name, lowercase. So it's case sensitive. So if we go press play here, and I happen to go to this filter, you can see how this one pops up. And if I toggle to the other one, that one pops up. So this ensures when you use that one property, only one filter pop-up will appear at a time. Now, what we want to do here is if we enter in any sort of text, we want to search on the gallery below. So if I enter into C, currently nothing happens. So what we want to do here is go back to our filter, and we're going to say, let's search on our filter list. And then what we're going to do is what's our text column that we want to search by. So you'll see here with the function search, our source is our list, what's the text input that we want to filter by, and what's the column we want to filter on. So in this case, it will be the text input one.text, and the one that we want to filter on here is the name column in our case. So if we go back to the list here, you will see that since we entered a C, it filtered already for us. And we back that out, we see all the values. So from here, what we can do, you can see how if we clear, it resets the field, it clears it. So that's pretty much working how we want it to. The only thing that we want to change is the filter icon on top. So we want this to appear whenever there's filter criteria present. So in this case, what we will do is we'll go and enter in another if property here, and we'll say when the length of our text input is greater than 0, we're going to show the filtered flat filled icon. Otherwise, we will show it being empty. So in this case, I'm going to enter into C. I'll click apply. So here we have some prospects and vendors and stuff like that. And then if I go and filter this list, I'm going to look for a prospect and a vendor that we have. So you can see how it easily mixes those filters together in one shot. So that's great. We can clear these if we want, as we need to. So for the last item that I want to show is adding one more filter for the status column, just to show you how multiple filters of list boxes can be used. So at this point, what I'm going to do, I'm going to pop up this, the type filter here. I'm going to copy it, paste it, and just show you how easy it is to build these out. So what I wanted to do, since we know active and inactive are our status options here, it's going to be pretty small. So what we can do is shrink our list box to about this size. Okay. We could try to move apply over, clear over. So try to make it a little bit smaller than what we need, that we had previously. And then what we can do is change around our items. And sorry, if I click on the list box here, we go to our items and we'll go to status for accounts. So that's our choices. And then you can see how we could drag it up because we know we'll only have those two options available to us. And then we'll bring up our buttons here. And then for the rectangle, we will drag it up. And then from here, we can go to our filter icon on select. What we will do is copy that, paste this in, and say status. And then at this point, because we grouped this together, it's going to now be our status filter. We can now say that it should only appear when the filter type equals to status. So if we go and press play here, status, it now appears. And then we would need to change around the clear. since we copied it over, it automatically clears. It automatically updated to list box 1 underscore 1. Of course, you should rename these to be more definitive of what this component represents. But in the essence of time, we'll just leave it as the default. And then lastly, what we want to do is update the icon to say that if it's the list box is populated, has a selected item, we want it to show as being filtered. So if it's list box 1, and we'll say not this blank, not selected, we want to show icon filtered, flat, filled. Otherwise, we'll show the standard icon. And then lastly, what we want to do is filter our gallery. So if we go back to here, you can see how we have this one section for the one filter, and we could do the same thing for the other filter. So we'll enter in a comma, and this will be another logical test for our filter. And we're going to say is blank, and this is going to be list box 1 underscore 1 selected. So this is for our status. And we'll say or this record dot status is in, and we're going to say the list box 1 underscore 1 dot selected items. Okay, so we have everything in place. So if we go back to here and we say I only want to see active, so we have one inactive, you'll see that it disappears. If we select both, they all appear. If we select active, that one appears. So it's very easy for us to filter now based off of what filters are applied in these list boxes or the text box. And it allows a sleek design as well. So you're not eating up a lot of real estate with drop downs over top. Its user needs to filter, they select the option, enter in their criteria, click apply, and then it's done.